spoken here, you know. First thing is, you know, Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi, right? Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi means it's like desiring. Now, in his heart also, he does not desire for sense gratification. There is no desiring also. Desire भी नहीं है. And ना इंद्रियार्थेषु मतलब क्या है, वो एंगेज भी नहीं कर रहा है अपने आप को, वो सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन में अपने आप को डाल भी नहीं रहा है, तो एंगेजमेंट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी नहीं कर रहा है वो. एंड न कर्मेशु, कर्मेशु मीन्स कर्म करना, एक्टिविटीज करना, राइट. तो वो परस्यू भी नहीं कर रहा है, ही इज नॉट परस्यूइंग आल्सो. सो ही इज नॉट, सो पॉइंट इज, once a person comes to the yogaruda stage, he does not pursue, he does not engage, he does not desire sense gratification. That's what Krishna is telling about this. A person is said to be elevated in the yoga when, having renounced all the material desires, he neither acts for the sense gratification nor engages in the fruitive activities. You know? Because in his heart also, he has no more material desires. So obviously, when there is no material desires in the heart, then he will not engage into those fruitive activities for getting those desires fulfilled. Neither he will actually also he will not engage into sense gratification. See, point is, so what is the difference between karma issue and one is doing sense gratification, and second thing is doing activities which will lead to the sense gratification. Like for example, like money. Money can give a sense gratification. So one is endeavoring for getting money. That is a karma. That is a fruitive activity. And after getting money, one will want to go for sex life, or one will want to go for some eatable. So when one actually does it, then that is sense gratification. Okay. So a person, because his heart is pure, then what happens is he can give up sense gratification as well as the activities which will lead to the sense gratification, or activities which are meant to give sense gratification. That's the qualification of a one who has become purified, who has come to the yoga ruda stage. That's what is mentioned in this shloka. Okay. Now next series of the verses are very important for us as a devotees and as a sadhakas, or for any yogi. So now Krishna is going to explain about that. What is the main obstacle for one to be able to come to this perfectional stage of yoga? All of us also, like we want to become a pure devotee, we want to reach the perfectional stage. So what is the main obstacle for it? And that is what Krishna is going to explain about. Very famous shloka. Uddharet atmanatmanam, uddharet atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadaet, आत्मेव आत्मनो बंधुर आत्मेव रिपुर आत्मनः. इसमें आत्मना वर्ड बार आया है, थोड़ा सा आसान है. इस वर्ष में, if you know the word atma refers to what? Atma refers to the soul. Atma also refers to the body, and atma also can mean the intelligence, and atma can also mean the mind. So the word atma can be used for all these four things, huh? For the soul, for the body, for the mind, for the intelligence, all this. In this particular verse, Krishna is more specifically talking मतलब क्या है? माइंड. उद्धरेत मतलब कि उद्धार करना चाहिए, डिलीवर करना चाहिए. क्या बता रहे हैं कि ना, वन शुड डिलीवर वन सोल विथ वंस माइंड. अपने मन से अपनी आत्मा का उद्धार करना चाहिए, ये बताया गया पहली लाइन में ना. आत्मना आत्मानम, आत्मना आत्मानम, राइट. मन से आत्मा का उद्धार करना चाहिए, या फिर मन को आत्मा के उद्धार के लिए यूज करना चाहिए ना. नात्मानम अवसादयेत, नात्मानम है ना, नम इज नॉट, आत्मानम इज सोल, अवसादयत मतलब कि डिग्रेड करना ना, ढक देना, उसके ज्ञान को ढक देना या फिर डिग्रेड करना है ना. इट्स नॉट बी यूज्ड फॉर डिग्रेडिंग द सोल. द माइंड शुड बी यूज्ड फॉर डिलीवरिंग द सोल, नॉट फॉर डिग्रेडिंग द सोल. मन को आत्मा के उद्धार के लिए यूज करना चाहिए, न कि उसको उसके पतन के लिए, ये बताया गया ना. एंड फिर आत्मेव ही आत्मनो बंधुर, आत्मेव, आत्म, यहाँ पे भी आत्म क्या हो गया? मन है ना. सर्टनली, एव में सर्टन, आत्मेव ही, दिस माइंड ही, सर्टनली माइंड ही जो है वही आत्मनो बंधुर, वही आत्मा का क्या है? बंधु है. बंधु मीन्स फ्रेंड है. एंड आत्मेव रिपुर आत्मनः, और ये जो मन ही है वही क्या है? रिपुर होता है कि शत्रु, बहुत बड़ा शत्रु. हाँ, तो जो मन है वही आत्मा का मित्र भी है, और ये जो मन है वही आत्मा का बहुत बहुत बड़ा शत्रु भी है, ऐसा बताया गया है ना. दिस इज द थिंग, So Krishna is telling that how the mind is one of the main obstacles for one to be able to come to the perfectional stage, So one should use the mind to deliver the soul, not degrading the soul. Because the mind can be a friend to the soul, or the mind can be the worst of the enemies for the soul. Okay. So this is the meaning, One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Right? This is some very important discussions to be done on this shloka. You see, first thing, in the conditioned state, mind and the body are very much connected. Where we are physically drives us mentally, right? So in our मोस्टली जहाँ पे हम फिजिकली रहते हैं मेंटली भी हम वहीं पे रहते हैं, राइट? दैट्स द नेचर इन द कंडीशन स्टेट, राइट? फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक मान लीजिए, फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक सपोज वी आर सिटिंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ द टेलीविजन एंड सम क्रिकेट मैच इज गोइंग ऑन. So, so what is there? Then your mind will also be there only, because your body is there. So there is a good chance that your mind will be also mostly there only, right? That's the condition state. If you become very advanced, then even though TV may be there, cricket may be going on, but your mind will not be there. Your body may be there, but your mind will not be there. But in the beginning stage, wherever the mind is, so that's why for the sadhakas it is very important to remain away from the sense objects. Because see, we all have experienced it. When we go when we go near some beautiful woman, automatically the mind also goes there. But out of sight, out of mind. If something is not within our jurisdiction, then it is out of our mind also. In the beginning stage, you will find that how both of them are very deeply connected. Wherever our physical body will be there, our mind will also be there. This is a very important thing. So this verse talks about the connection between the mind and the soul. See, very important. See, what is the connection between the mind and soul? You see, we are perceiving the outer world through the mind. Wherever the mind is open, we perceive as a reality, and towards others, we become blind. हाँ, इस वर्ल्ड में देखिए क्या है ना, हाउ डू वी परसीव दिस वर्ल्ड? सो वी परसीव दिस वर्ल्ड बाय द मीन्स ऑफ अवर माइंड ओनली. हमारे मन के द्वारा ही हम इस संसार को देख पाते हैं, समझ पाते हैं. माइंड इज लाइक अ डोरवे फॉर अस. Mind is like a doorway for us to see the outer world. It means what? Whatever is our mental state, that defines our consciousness, and based upon that only we perceive the world around us, right? Let us take an example. For example, like, let us say, like now all of us we devotees. Now suppose you come to the Radha Madhav temple. When you come inside the temple, then then you want to take the darshan of the Lord. You want to see what kind of dress Lord has wear. You take darshan from the lotus feet. Then you move upwards towards the lotus face. Then you take Gaur Nitai's darshan. You take Radha Madhav's darshan, right? Now, so when you are inside the temple, then you will see the temple in that particular manner, right? Now suppose you bring a new friend, है ना, who is not a devotee, who is a materialist. Now he comes in the temple. What he will see? He will see, अरे कितना कितना अच्छा डिजाइन बनाया है ना फ्लोर पे. अरे कितना अच्छा शैंडलियर बना रखा है. अरे कितने सारे लोग आ रखे हैं, बहुत सारे. There are many Matajis also. Some beautiful girls are also there. He may see those things, right? He may not see the deities, okay, but he will see all the things. अरे काफी पैसा खर्च किया है, पूरा मार्बल का बनाया है, काफी पैसा है इस्कॉन वालों के पास में, इसका मतलब है, okay. You see, because he has a material consciousness, he has a materialistic oriented mind, a materially oriented mind. So then what happens? His consciousness is also material, and his perceiving of the things outside is also material. That's how it is there. So this is the connection. So based upon the state of our mind, based upon the state of our mind, the consciousness is being defined, and based upon that only we can perceive the outer world in that particular manner. That's the point. So let's say mind is like a door to our consciousness. Whatever level our mind will be, to that we will become conscious. So if our mind is conscious, or if our mind is spiritually oriented, then we will be then 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 our consciousness will also go towards the spiritual thing. But if our mind is materially oriented, then what will happen? Then we will go for the materialistic activities, and then that will lead to the bondage. So this is very important that we have the choice. We can either open our mind either to the material things or to the spiritual things. That's our choice. If we consciousness, That comes by the association, especially by the hearing and reading the Shastras. When we hear, read, then they help us to understand how to see this world in a spiritual manner. And then we can see those things in a spiritual manner. Otherwise, by default, we see it in a metal way, okay? So the thing is that how mind is a door. Mind is a door for the consciousness. Mind is a door for the Atma to see the world. You know? So the state of the mind is very important. You know? You see, the purport Prabhupada is quoting one shloka from the Upanishads. मन एव मनुष्यानां कारणं बंध मोक्षयो बंधाय विषया संगो मुक्ते निर्विषयम मनः. Same type of shloka is there, which is being there in this, you know, right? मन एव मनुष्यानां कारणं बंध मोक्षयो. मन ही कारण है किस चीज का? बंधन का या फिर मोक्ष का. The mind is the cause for the liberation, or the mind is the cause of of the bondage, you know. बंधाय विषया संगो. Now, when the mind is associating with the vishayas, with the sense objects, then it leads to bondage. And muktaye nirvishayam manaha. And when the mind is freed or detached from the sense, from the vishayas, then it leads to the liberation. So the thing is that, you know, when the mind is no more thinking about the sense gratification, then it will lead to the liberation. But when it is thinking about the sense objects, then it will lead to the bondage. That's the point, you know. So here one important thing, you see, do we have control over our mind? Do we have a control over our mind? No. You will see that, you know, to some extent we do have control over our mind, and to some extent it is not there. So to say it in a summary way, we don't have a absolute control over mind, but we also have a significant control over mind. Right? Absolutely नहीं, absolutely मतलब कि हम चाहें वैसे हमारा मन करेगा, ऐसा नहीं होता है. लेकिन हाँ, हम अपने प्रयास से काफी कुछ जो हमें करना चाहिए हम लोग अपने मन से करवा सकते हैं by our efforts, you know. So that's why again we find Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is again mentioning many shlokas about the mind, that how one should try to fix one minds upon me. Man mana bhavmad bhakto na maya arpita ananyas chintayanto mam. Right? Again Krishna is telling that, you know, try to fix your mind upon me. So which means what? It's a process of cultivation. You know, we have to try to make an effort to bring our mind or fix our mind upon Krishna. So for that, what is required is, now we need to have a consistent and conscious cultivation. Right? Consciously we have to do. Consciously means attentively. The mind may want to go here and there. Again, we have to consciously bring it back. We have to understand it how the mind is going off track. Again, we have to try to bring it back, and consistently, again, you know, we have to do it. And see, when Krishna sees our sincerity, then Krishna will give us the control of the mind. See, right now, as a sadhaka, we are trying to fix our mind upon Krishna, but we are finding it's a struggle. The reason is because we don't desire so strong to fix our mind upon Krishna. Krishna is not pleased with our desire. Krishna is not convinced with our desires, you know, because we do desire sense gratification. That's the point, right? But when Krishna will see that we really don't want sense gratification, we really want to fix our mind upon Krishna, then Krishna will give his mercy, and then the mind will get automatically fixed in Krishna. You don't have to put any effort. It's just like, you know, morning here I was giving an example, like suppose you are flowing, suppose, you know, just like, you know, suppose you are swimming in a river, let us say, na? So you are trying to put your efforts to swim, you know. But now suppose from the behind the wave comes in the same direction. Then if a big wave comes, then automatically it will dry you. You don't have to put any effort, you know. You will be you don't put any effort, and you will be driven ahead by the wave. Same with the wave of Krishna's mercy can fix our mind upon him constantly, you know. But Krishna will give us that when we really desire it. So like, you know, many times devotees ask that, Prabhuji, you know, मन नहीं लग पाता है चैंटिंग के समय, मन इधर उधर भागता रहता है. राइट, हम सबका एक्सपीरियंस, राइट. बहुत सारे तरीके आप मैकेनिकल तरीके निकाल सकते हो कि ठीक है आप मंत्र को थोड़ा ऐसे से पढ़ो, है ना, आंखें खोल के करो, सीधे बैठ के पढ़ो, ओके. लेकिन द थिंग इज, you know, why it is going to happen till the time we don't sufficiently develop a desire to really put our mind in Krishna. So when we really desire to put our mind in Krishna, then the Krishna's mercy, Krishna will award us that gift, because mind is Krishna's energy. That's the point. So the thing is, at our level, we have to put a conscious and consistent cultivation, right? Consciously we have to do. Every day we are chanting. Consciously we should see that whether I'm going off track. If I'm going off track, again let us try to bring our minds. And every day we have to do. day after day, day after day. Then when Krishna sees that, oh, we are serious about fixing our mind upon him, then Krishna will award us that gift in our life. Okay, so next shloka now. Now, so Krishna told that how the mind can be the friend or mind can be the enemy. No. Now, next shloka, Krishna is explaining that what is going to determine that whether the mind is going to be our friend or enemy. What is going to be the deciding factor? That's next shloka. बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्मेवात्मना जितः अनात्मानस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तते आत्मेव शत्रुवत्. So Krishna is mentioning that when the mind will be a friend and when the mind will be enemy. So he's telling you, see, bandhur, at, bandhur atmatmanas, bandhur atma atmanas tasya. Bandhur means friend. Bandhur atma. Right? This atma means this mind. The mind is a bandhu for the atma, for the soul. When yen atmev atmanah jitah. Jitah means conquer. For a person, for a soul who has conquered the mind. Yen atmev atmanah jitah. One who has conquered one's mind. Jita means conquered. So the mind is a friend for one who has conquered his mind. And anatmanas to shatrutve, anatmanas, right? One who is uncontrolled mind. Anatmanas means uncontrolled. The uncontrolled mind is surely a shatru. Tu means but. Shatrutve vartate atmeva shatruvat. Vartate means देखिए यहाँ पे बहुत वर्तते means remains. Shatrutve means enmity. Atma eva, the very mind. Shatruvat means as enemy. Very important to see that. You see, Krishna is saying that by default the mind is going to remain an enemy. But if somebody tries to control it, then it can become a best friend. So by default, mind is going to be an enemy. But yeah, if somebody tries, then it can become best of the friends. That's what Krishna is saying. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of the friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So the thing is that till the time we have not controlled our mind, we are living with our worst enemy. We are living with the greatest enemy. And in the conditioned state, we are so ignorant that we put full trust upon the mind. We really think him as our best well-wisher. So Prabhupada is making the points. But please read, any of you.
One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The
Yes,
constitution.
his life and the mission are spoiled, right? If somebody does not endeavor to control the mind, then what will going to happen? His life and the mission are going to be spoiled, right? So the mission of life is what? The mission of life is to have purification of the mind, purification of the heart, and to become a pure devotee of Krishna. But that is going to get failed if one will not control the mind. Go ahead.
The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma.
So our position is what? The position of the jiva is what? We are marginal energy. Either we will be under Krishna or we will be under Krishna's Maya, right? There's no other third option for us. Now, one cannot think that okay, I will not be with Krishna and I will not be with Maya. It will not be there for a long time. After some time, you will get into one thing surely. If you're not choosing Krishna, surely you're going to be into Maya. Because the soul's position is to be under the subordination, either under Krishna's direct subordination or under Krishna's indirect subordination in the form of the Maya. That's the point. So the thing is that the soul needs a boss, and the mind also needs a boss. So if we accept Krishna as our boss, then we can move towards liberation. But if we don't accept Krishna as the boss, then we are into the bondage. So if somebody controls the mind, then what happens? Then the Lord will take charge. Then the Lord will take hold of our life. That's the point. By default, in this world also there's a gravity, right? It's just like there's a gravitational force because of which everything will come down. Same way, the gravity is there in this world because of which our consciousness will go down. Which means what? If you're not trying to uplift your consciousness, if you're not trying to, equip yourself with spiritual knowledge, then by default the mind will bring you down for enjoyment. The consciousness will bring you down for the enjoyment. That's the nature of this world. Because the mind is the enemy. How it is the enemy? Because it is filled with insatiable desires for enjoyment. There are hard impressions, sanskaras, which are there for from many lifetimes, right? अभी आप देखो भक्ति में आने के भी कई सालों बाद में भी हम कई बार माला करते हैं तो भी बहुत सारे गंदे थॉट्स आ जाते हैं, बहुत सारी गंदी मूवीज जो हमने पहले देखा हो आपके माइंड में आ जाएंगे, because all those impressions are deeply embedded in the mind. So, so if you take to the path of purification, then there's a hope. Otherwise, very difficult. So Krishna has mentioned about it, how in which situation the mind can be friend and the enemy. Okay. And now Krishna is explaining that, next three shlokas about what is going to be the symptom of one who will have conquered the mind, who will have made his mind as a friend. Next shloka. Citatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitah शीतोष्ण सुख दुखेशु तथा मान अपमानयो. ब्यूटीफुल श्लोका. सी ना, क्या होगा? देखिए, जिसका मन कंट्रोल में आ गया, जिसने मन को कंट्रोल कर लिया, तो क्या होगा? जीत आत्मनः प्रशांतस्य, राइट? जितात्मनः, आत्मना मीन्स माइंड, जीत मीन्स जीत लिया. जिसने अपने मन को जीत लिया ना, प्रशांतस्य, ही विल बिकम, शांत मतलब था कि पीसफुल. प्रशांतस्य मीन्स ग्रेटली पीसफुल. If somebody has controlled the mind, he can become greatly peaceful. He will have no anxieties. This is the first thing which will happen. And second thing is Paramatma samahitah. Samahita means what? Approach completely. Right? So Paramatma means what? The Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, the heart. जो भगवान में हमारे परमात्मा बैठे हैं ना. तो जिसने अपने मन को कंट्रोल कर लिया है ना, वो परमात्मा के पास पहुंच गया. He has already reached परमात्मा. इसका मतलब क्या है कि he will follow exactly the dictation of the Paramatma. He will have no more separate desires. See, right now, what is the situation? See, we are here, the soul, the contaminated soul, and here is a Paramatma. Here is a Paramatma. Here we are, and right now, what is there? Ideally, the soul should be facing towards the Paramatma, which means what? The soul should do what Krishna desires, the Paramatma desires. But right now, our situation is what? We are our direction is averse. We are trying to face the material enjoyment, material desires. Right? We are not towards the Paramatma. But when somebody practices the yoga and he has conquered his mind, then what will happen? The mind is, see, what the uncontrolled mind is leading to many material desires for enjoyment, because of which we are not turning towards the Paramatma. But when one becomes controlled in the mind, one gives up the material desires, then one can again becomes, Paramatma samahita. One can again fix towards the Paramatma. That's the point. So if somebody has controlled the mind, he will become very peaceful. Why peaceful? Because there is no anxiety. Whenever we desire sense enjoyment, that leads to anxiety. But when there's no desires for sense enjoyment, there's no anxiety. And one has already reached the Paramatma. One has already, because point is that one will become one with the Paramatma, which means one will become one in terms of desires. Whatever is Krishna's desires will become one's desires. That is what is being told. Paramatma samahita. He has already become connected with Paramatma. And another thing is Sita Ushna Sukha Dukheshu Tatha Man Apamanayo. Now he will become peaceful in all these dualities. Prashant se bataya tha na? He will be peaceful amidst all these dualities. See, Sit Ushna, ठंडी गर्मी, सुख दुख, है ना, एंड मान अपमान. देखो ये तीनों अलग अलग लेवल्स पर हैं. सुख शीत उष्ण, ठंडी गर्मी किसको लगता है? शरीर को लगता है, बॉडी को, है ना. सुख दुख किसको फील होता है? मन को फील होता है. और मान अपमान किसको फील होता है? ईगो को, फॉल्स ईगो, जो हमारा ईगो होता है उसको, राइट ना. तो पॉइंट क्या है कि so these dualities are being experienced by the body, by the mind, by the ego, ahankar. So, but one who has become controlled in the mind, then what will happen? No, he will not feel these dualities. He will be able to rise above these dualities. These things will not disturb him. These things will not disturb his absorption into spiritual life. That's the point. Because he has conquered the mind. He has conquered the mind. He will become very peaceful. That's the point. Right? So see, proper translation. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. Tranquility means peace. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, all will become the same. He will not be disturbed. He will be able to perceive everything equally. He will not become disturbed. Please read purport.
Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma or Supersoul. Because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness, the devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practically samadhi or absorption in the Supreme.
So here one very important point. See, when one's mind is fixed in the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it, right? So see, if we want to control the mind, now, we have to understand first thing, only Krishna can control the mind. And who is the representative of Krishna? It's the spiritual master. So we have to allow the spiritual master to, that's why you see, disciple means one who agrees to be one who agrees to be disciplined. That's a disciple. So the spiritual master, he disciplines our gross body and the subtle body. That's the contribution of the spiritual master. If we follow the spiritual master's instructions, they are meant to help us control our subtle body and the gross body. Right? So gross body means gross bad habits, meditating, intoxication, gambling, we give it them up. And subtle body also, subtle body, we try to cultivate good food, we try to give up our bad conditionings, bad habits. Now we try to give up our ignorance, we try to give up our passion. So the spiritual master, no, the spiritual master should be allowed to control our gross and the subtle body. Now that should happen. If we allow them, so point is, if we follow the instructions of spiritual master, then the mind or the gross body, subtle body can be controlled. Otherwise, it's not possible. The gross senses and the subtle body cannot be controlled because they are energies of Krishna. If you follow Krishna, then they can be in line. If you don't follow Krishna, then they will remain uncontrolled. That's the point, right? So that's why if a devotee offends the spiritual master or some superior, then he will have very, very great difficulty to control his mind, to control his desires. That happens, we have seen many times. If somebody becomes disrespectful towards the guru, the superiors, then he will have great difficulty to control the mind and the senses. Because he's not getting the mercy of Krishna. Only by the mercy of Krishna one can control the mind and the senses. That's why it's very important to be accountable. Or in other words, to do everything in our life with the blessings of the superiors. Because blessings of superior means blessings of Krishna. Only by the blessings of Krishna the mind and the senses can be controlled. Otherwise, not possible. Okay. Okay. Next sloka. Another further. Further, what is going to happen if somebody has controlled the mind? So, what is going to be the vision of such a person? That's the next sloka. ज्ञान विज्ञान तृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इति उच्यते योगी समलोष्टाश्म कंचनः. It's also very beautiful shloka. Kanchana, right? So such a yogi who has controlled the mind, what is going to happen? He will have jnana vijnana triptatma. He will have knowledge. Gyan means knowledge, and he will also have realization of the knowledge. Vigyan means realization of the knowledge. And because of this knowledge and the realization, he will be very triptatma. He will be very satisfied. He will be very satisfied. Tript means satisfied. Such a person who has controlled the mind, he will have knowledge, he will have realizations, and he will be very satisfied. He will have great inner satisfaction. And kutastho vijitendriya, he will be kutastho means यहाँ पे spiritually situated बताया गया है. He will be spiritually situated, and he will be vijitendriya. he will have control over his senses. He will be sensually controlled. Yukta iti uchate yogina. He will be called as a yukta. Yukta means what? Competent for the self-realization, right? Yukta means one who is connected with the supreme. Also, you can say that yoga. One who do yoga becomes a yukta. Such a person can be a yogi. Such a person can be yukta, है ना? And what else? Some lost asma kanchana. He will be able to see equally. What? Lostra. Lostra means what? Pebbles. ना पत्थर, छोटे छोटे पत्थर जिसको बोलते हैं, राइट. एंड अश्म, अश्म मीन्स अगेन बिग स्टोन्स, छोटे पत्थर, बड़े पत्थर. एंड कंचना, कंचना मीन्स गोल्ड. Such a person will be able to see them equally because he has no attachment, he has no desires for sense gratification. So for him everything becomes equal, whether it's a stone or whether it's a gold, because he has no desire to have enjoyment from them. So for him everything, he's able to see them equally. That's the point. So the thing here is, see, jnana vigyan triptatma, one becomes very satisfied because of the jnana and the vigyan, because of the knowledge and the realization which comes. See here some important discussions, See, so what is this? How do we rise from the gyan to vigyan? See, gyan means what? The knowledge, not the spiritual knowledge, more specifically in our context, the spiritual knowledge, right? So how do we get the gyan? That comes basically when we hear, mainly from our ears. When we hear or when we read, then we get some spiritual knowledge, right? We get some spiritual knowledge, and then what happens is, when we contemplate upon that knowledge, so then what will happen when we contemplate upon that? Then what will happen? Then intellectually we will become convinced of that. So we will be able to have intellectual understanding of the knowledge. Right? We heard or we read something, then we try to contemplate upon it. We try to reflect upon it. Then what will happen? Our intelligence can become convinced of that knowledge by contemplation and reflection. Okay, and by the eradication of the doubts. Some doubts may also come, so we eradicate those doubts. And see, so that's the head, the gyan. The knowledge will come to the. So that's the knowledge. That's the gyan. Gyan means the intellectual understanding, the intellectual understanding which we get. That's called as the jnana, right? For example, like we heard, okay, a sense gratification leads to misery, or let us say, no, we are not the bodies, we are the atma. So it's a knowledge. So when we reflect upon the knowledge, then what happens? Our mind, our head will become convinced. Our intellect will become convinced. So then that is called as a jnana. Jnana means the knowledge, which has become fixed in our intelligence. That's the jnana. Okay. And now when we practice that knowledge, then what happens is, then our heart also become convinced. That is called as a vijnana. Vijnana means when we apply that knowledge, then what happens is we are able to have an experience of that knowledge. When we get the experience, we get the realization. That's called as a vijnana. So no, so this is how it comes. We hear the knowledge, then we contemplate. That is simply called as shravan, mananam, and nididhyasanam. The technical words are this. First we do shravanam, we hear. Then we do mananam, that is contemplation. So the shravanam comes when we do mananam, then that turns into the jnana. That turns into our knowledge which has convinced our head. And when we do nidhyasanam, when we apply that knowledge in our life, what happens is there's a transformation. We are able to have realizations. That becomes vigyan. Okay. So then the heart also becomes involved. So you see now, here one point we discuss. Just intellectual understanding will not help. Mind, which means emotions, they also needs to be involved or the convinced. When the mind accepts, that is realization. The inner acceptance. So what is there? ठीक है, हमने कुछ, फॉर एग्जांपल जैसे ना, सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन इज गोइंग टू लीड टू द मिजरीज. ठीक है, हमें पता ही है, नॉलेज हमको पता है सब लोगों को, सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन लीड्स टू मिजरी, राइट? So we know this, our intelligence is convinced about this, है ना? But you see, our our head is convinced, but our heart is still not convinced of it. What is the proof? That if the proof is that now also when some sense object come around us, then what happens is we tend to enjoy it. Like some beautiful girl comes, we may want to see it, or let us say some nice eatable is there, we may want to overeat it, right now? Or somebody may wants to go for the sex pleasure. We know that sex is going to sense gratification will lead to misery, but again still one will be fascinated towards the sex life, which means what? Even though intellectually we have understood this knowledge, the gyan is there, but the vigyan has not come. Why? because our emotions, our mind is yet not convinced. Our mind is yet not convinced. Our intelligence may be convinced, but the mind is not convinced. The mind has not accepted. Mind says, no, 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 I think sense gratification gives some happiness. Maybe this point may not be fully true. The mind has not accepted, but when the mind accepts it, then the heart accepts it, the mind accepts it, then what happens is that is called as the realization. Then what is happen once you have come to this stage, then what will happen? Then you will be really able to give up sense gratification, because your heart has become transformed. That's the point. So that is the called as a vigyan. Vigyan means that thing. See, for something, like for example, like for alcohol, let us say, like for some things, we have knowledge and we also have realization of it, right? Like for alcohol we know that it leads to misery only. It harms the body, and so we have knowledge also, and we are convinced also about it. So that's why we will not turn towards alcohol in any case. But there are some things like sex, or some nice eatables. We have a tendency to become attached to them or to go for them. Why? Because our heart is not yet convinced that they are not going to be the sources of the happiness. They're going to be sources of the misery. So the vigyan has not come. The realization has not come. And see, see, without vigyan, there cannot be tripti. There cannot be tripti. See, आपको इंटेलेक्चुअल अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, बट रियलाइजेशन नहीं आया है, तो क्या होगा? हमेशा एक मिसमैच रहेगा, राइट? फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक लेट अस से ना ना फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक अपोजिट सेक्स दैट लीड्स टू मिजरी। ठीक है, ज्ञान आपको है लेकिन क्या होता है, अभी आपका मन कन्विंस नहीं है, तो माइंड वांट्स टू गो टुवर्ड्स इट, राइट? कोई अपने किसी गर्ल को देखा, अपोजिट सेक्स को देखा, तो मन वहां पे जाना चाहता है, राइट ना? सो ऑल्दो इंटेलेक्चुअल इज कन्विंस्ड फॉर समथिंग, बट द माइंड इज नॉट कन्विंस्ड अबाउट दिस थिंग, so there's a tug of war. There's a tug of war, and that's why you cannot be satisfied. But because both of them are acting in different way, intelligence is saying something, mind is telling something, emotions are telling something. But when both of them become same, mind and the intelligence both are on the same page, then you can be tripta. That's what happens when a person gets knowledge and realization. He can become tripta. He can be satisfied. What is the meaning of realization? To accept the reality as reality. That's the realization. When we are able to, when our mind, our heart is convinced of the reality, then that is called as the realization. And you see here some nice examples are being given. That how see the gyan vigyan. So we have some knowledge. We have some knowledge. So the knowledge itself is not sufficient. We have to apply. Then only we will be able to reach to the realization. Just like you may have a map, you may have a country map, let us say, but just having the map will not help you. The map is showing you that how you can reach to this place in this particular manner, passing from these places, right? Now, okay, you have knowledge about it, but you have to, if you really want to reach to that place, then you have to put an effort to reach to that place. It can show you the way. Same way prescription. The doctor gives you some prescription that okay, you take this medication, then you will be cured. But you really have to take that medicine, then only you will get cured. Recipe. You have discussed that how do you make the firni, or how do you make the butter halwa? You know that you have to first roast the suji, you have to have a butter, and you have to put vanilla essence towards the end. Right? You know the recipe, okay? But if you really want to taste it, you have to really make it. You have to do the same way manual. You may have studied the manual about how to operate the machine, but when you actually operate that machine, then you will have experience of that machine. The same way, uh, the thing is that how we need to apply the knowledge which we gain through our study of the scriptures or from the devotees or by hearing. When we'll apply, then only they're going to turn towards, or they're going to lead towards the realizations. Okay, we have to internalize the knowledge which we receive. We have to internalize the knowledge which we receive. Okay, that's another important thing now. Now, what prevents us from what prevents us from applying the knowledge? What prevents us from converting this ज्ञान into विज्ञान? क्या चीज है जो हमारे ज्ञान को विज्ञान में बदलने नहीं देती है? तो देखिए, दो चीजें हैं वो, है ना? There are two obstacles for us to turn our knowledge into the realizations. What are those two obstacles? One is the desires, and the second thing is the doubts. For us or for other people also. Why the other people are not able to take the spiritual path? Because of mainly these two reasons: the desires and the doubts. Right? Desires means what? That there are many desires, there are many material desires, And where do those desires come? They come from the mind. So that's how the karmi people, no, they don't want to follow the spiritual path because they're filled with so many material desires. They think that okay, material desires can give us happiness in our life. So because of so many material desires, they cannot take to the spiritual path. They cannot have the knowledge and they cannot have the realization. है ना? So that's for the karmi people, है ना? Materialistic people. And for the jnanis, so what prevents the jnanis from taking full-heartedly to the spiritual path? That is the doubts. The jnanis, they may be studying the scriptures, but what happens is they have many doubts. Because of many of these doubts, their knowledge may not convert into the realization. है ना? So that's for the jnanis, right? Na? So see, the karmi people, na, they are caught up because of the mind, because they have many material desires in the mind. And those who are jnanis, they are caught up in their intelligence. Because their intelligence is not yet convinced of many questions. Now, when you talk about us as a devotee, we are tapped into both of these things. Okay, our mind is caught up with many material desires also, and our intelligence is also not convinced of many of the aspects. Now we have heard, we know the knowledge, but it's not still convinced. It's not convinced to follow them, apply them, and to have realization of them. So we are also into trap of any of these things right now. See, out of these also, so one thing is the material desires, and the second thing is about the doubts. So see, out of these two also, which are more dangerous? The more dangerous is the doubts, the philosophical doubts. Because philosophical doubts are more dangerous. Okay, essentially, suppose if you are not able to control yourself, okay, that's all right. If you have not controlled one time, okay, afterwards you can control. Again, you can become more determined and can control. Right? But if you have a philosophical deviation, philosophical doubt, then what will happen? You are going to go away from bhakti only. So that's why philosophical doubts are very difficult. Are the more serious things, more serious obstacles for gaining gyan and vigyan. So how we can get rid of this? So for giving up this material desires, what is needed is we need knowledge, and we also need to practice chanting Hare Krishna. When we do bhakti, we have to have experience of the higher taste, which will come by the performance of the bhakti by chanting. When we do bhakti, chanting, we get a higher experience, then we can give up those material desires which are there in our mind, which cause an obstacle for us to turn towards spiritual life and a turn towards Gyan and the Vigyan. This is for the desires in the heart, So we have to have a higher taste by the purification brought by the performance of the devotional service. And then how can we remove the doubts? Doubts को remove करने के लिए we have to take shelter of the scriptures. We have to study, we have to inquire, and there may be some doubts which may not get eradicated immediately. So we have to be patient. We have to patiently follow the process, and eventually we will be able to get rid of those doubts also in our life. That's how. So in this way we can come to the point of Gyan and the Vigyan. Sandeep, please switch off. In this way, we can have Gyan and the Vigyan. एक और चीज इसमें डिस्कस कर सकते हैं, टाइम बहुत कम हो जाता है ना. देखिए, साइंस है ना, जनरली हम लोग साइंस को क्या मानते हैं? वी थिंक साइंस इज अ ज्ञान. People think that okay, science talks about the philosophy, science talks about the principles, science talks about the theories. So those people who are following scientific path, they are following the path of jnana, but it is not like that, right? See, science is like a karma kand only. See, what is the meaning of karma kand? Karma kand is a person wants to enjoy in the material world, and he tries to manipulate the matter. For example, like a person wants to have rains, so he will do a yagya for having a rain. So the rains will come, then he will have nice production, and then he can enjoy materially. So ultimately, the principle of karma kanda is what? That one wants to manipulate the matter for the enjoyment. That's the principle for the karma kanda. So now, if you see the science which we have right now, ultimately the science is meant for what? There's a development of the science, there's a development of technologies. Ultimately, for what purpose? Again, science is trying to manipulate the nature around us, the things around us. We have made the laptops, we have made the mobiles, we are studying the wave propagations, right? All the efforts are mainly to manipulate the matter around us. For what purpose? For the purpose of sense gratification. So science, what we study, is not a jnana. It's a karma kanda. And somehow, because we have studied it, it has filled our hearts with a lot of desires for enjoyment, right? So in the science, after studying the science, you want to develop more technology for more sense gratification. You are loaded with more and more material desires. That's the point. That's the point, But what we are having spiritual knowledge, it is going to be, it's the real jnana. It's the real jnana. Okay. These were some important things in this shloka. And one last thing, that how one can get the realization. So of course, how one will get realization? One thing is we have to apply the knowledge in our life. First thing, we have to get the right knowledge, and then we have to apply it in our life. And now see, when you apply the knowledge, doesn't mean that necessarily you are going to get the realization. You are going to become convinced of the knowledge. Right? That will happen. Realization is a gift of Krishna. So that's why what Prabhupada writes in the purport. See, please read. Purport Prabhupada mentions that how one can get realizations, right? So one aspect of getting realization is we have to apply the knowledge in our life. But there's another bigger aspect. That is what? That is the mercy of Krishna. When we put our efforts for understanding the knowledge and applying the knowledge in our life, and when Krishna is pleased with our sincerity, then Krishna will award us the realization of that knowledge. It can't come artificially. No. Krishna has to be pleased with our sincerity. Now, when Krishna is pleased with our sincerity, then Krishna will award us the realization of that knowledge. Ultimately, Satchid Ananda. Chit means knowledge. Atma is having all the knowledge in the heart. So, but right now it is being covered. Why? Because we lack sincerity. The sincerity is being disturbed by our material desires, material attachments. But as we go on progressing in the spiritual life, now, as we become more and more sincere, we become more and more convinced of giving up the material desires. We become more and more convinced of giving pleasure to Krishna, acting as per our constitutional position. Then Krishna will award us. Krishna will again open up the treasure of the knowledge which is there in the soul, in the Atma. That's there. So that's why the path of the bhakti, not in the path of the bhakti, in any other path also, one will be able to get realization only by the mercy of the God. Even in the Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, they put their efforts, and by the mercy of God, they get some realizations they get some special realizations. Please read the purport.
Book knowledge
without realize of the supreme truth is useless. This
Book
is
knowledge
stated as
without
follows.
book knowledge without realization of the supreme
Book
truth
knowledge
is
without
useless.
realization of the supreme truth is useless. This is stated as follows. Atha Shri Krishna
अथा
Nama.
श्री कृष्ण नामादि न भवेत् ग्राह्यम् इन्द्रिये सेवन्मुखे हि जिह्वादो स्वयमेव स्फुरति अधः.
No one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord are the transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. Bhakti
This
Rasamrita
is a
Sindhu.
very important shloka of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that see, one cannot understand Krishna, one cannot realize Krishna, materially, as long as we have material senses. But then what? Sevan mukhe hi jivado, right? When we become sevan mukh, when we develop a desire to serve Krishna, when we develop a service attitude, then what happens? Then automatically, swayam is automatically स्फुरति अधः. स्फुरति मीन्स स्फुरन होना, मतलब कि प्रकट होना, है ना, अपने आप इस वजह से प्रकट हो जाती है. Like right now we don't realize that Krishna is there in his holy name. We are not able to understand Krishna's pastimes. But when you become Semonmukh, when Krishna is pleased with your sincerity, then Krishna will reveal all these things. That's why we say revealed knowledge. What you are having is spiritual life is a matter of revelation. The spiritual life is a matter of revelation. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprasthena sevaya updeshanteyam jnaninas tattvadarshina. The spiritual knowledge is being rewarded. The spiritual knowledge is being revealed. The Shastras are revealed. That's why you'll find wherever Prabhupada writes about scriptures, this is called revealed scriptures. What is the meaning of revealed scriptures? Is that the scriptural knowledge is revealed in our heart. The scriptural knowledge will get revealed in the heart. It's a process of revelation, right? So, जब हम सेवोन्मुख बनते हैं, जब हम सर्विस एटीट्यूड में आते हैं, तो फिर क्या स्पिरिचुअल नॉलेज हमको रिवील होगी, यहाँ पे बताएगा, राइट? सिर्फ बुकिश नॉलेज से नहीं आएगा रियलाइजेशन. बुकिश नॉलेज से समझ में नहीं आएगा, राइट? किताबें पढ़ लेंगे, श्लोक पढ़ लेंगे, लेकिन रियलाइजेशन नहीं आएगा. रियलाइजेशन कब आएगा? when सेवनमुख बनेंगे, राइट? when we develop a desire to serve Krishna, when we develop a desire to serve Krishna, please the spiritual master, then we will have realization of the knowledge. Go ahead.
This Bhagavad Gita is the science of Krishna consciousness. No one can become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship. One must be fortunate enough to associate with a person who is in pure consciousness. A Krishna conscious person has realized knowledge by the grace of Krishna because he is satisfied with pure devotional service. By realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. But by transcendental knowledge, one can remain steady in his convictions. But by mere academic knowledge, one can be easily deluded and confused by apparent contradictions. It is the realized soul who is actually self-controlled because he is surrendered to Krishna. He is transcendental because he has nothing to do with the mundane scholarship. For him, mundane scholarship and mental speculation, which may be as good as gold to others, are of no greater value than pebbles or stones.
This is very important, huh? Bhagavad Gita is the science of no one can become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship, right? सिर्फ mundane scholarship से सिर्फ संस्कृत पढ़ के नहीं समझ में आएगा ना. What is required is a Krishna conscious person has realized knowledge by the grace of Krishna because he is satisfied with the pure devotional service. See, this is a formula. When one is getting the mercy of Krishna, then one will have realization. And by such realization, what is going to happen? One will become perfect. Perfect means what? No, one will be able to act in a perfect manner. And what else will happen? One will be able to remain steady in his convictions. So the thing is what, when we are trying to sincerely apply the knowledge in our life, and we are trying to sincerely please Krishna in our life, the representatives of Krishna in our life, then Krishna will give us the higher taste. Krishna will give us the conviction upon the knowledge. And by that, what will happen? We will be able to remain steady in our convictions. No, we will not get affected by the material world, by the material propaganda. Like Prabhupada will say, like see, Prabhupada disciples will find, one time when Prabhupada was giving a class, one Indian came in India. It's a talk in India. An Indian came and he was observing that devotees are all sleeping. Okay, so after the class, he told Swamiji, all your disciples are just sleeping in the class. But okay, really? Yeah, almost for 99% time they are just sleeping. Papa told, you see, you are telling that they are sleeping for 99% time, only 1% time they are awake, and still they are, doing so many things. They have given up sense gratification, they have come to India, they are practicing pure spiritual life, and you are hearing so much, and still there is no transformation in you. That's the beauty, The spiritual knowledge brings you, if you follow the authorized path, then what happens very quickly one gets realizations. You see, we were having three couples, this Shyam Sundar Prabhu, Mukund Maharaj, and one more, I forgot who. Just in a journey of some few months, Prabhupada taught them some Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada told them that go to Britain, go to London, and do preaching. And they were having no arrangements there, but see, they were able to have that conviction. They went there, they preached, and they were able to do such a great wonder there. Because if somebody is following a spiritual master, pleasing a spiritual master, then he will have a strong conviction upon the spiritual knowledge. So this is the formula, that how when we try to sincerely apply the knowledge in our life, and we also please the representatives of Krishna in our life, then Krishna will award us the realizations. And by those realizations, what will happen? We will remain steady. We will become steady, which means what? Sense gratification not appeal us. And the spiritual concepts will have full conviction upon the spiritual concepts in our life. So this is what Krishna is mentioning here, how Gyan Vijnana Triptatma. When one becomes uh, then one becomes very much satisfied, because of the Gyan and the Vijnana. So the way to get Vijnan, the realization is one has to have mercy of the Lord. That's why very important for any devotee. We may be doing very good reading, hearing, some other good sevas also, right? But are we pleasing our authorities? If we are not pleasing the authorities, then what is going to be there? We will not make much advancement in our spiritual life. So that's why in our path, the emphasis on pleasing the devotees. Like now, book distribution is there. No, Prabhupada, if you please Prabhupada, then we'll have realizations of this knowledge. Otherwise, we'll not have. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Prabhupada ki jai. So any questions you have, you can discuss. We could cover till shloka number 8, right? Yeah. कोई क्वेश्चन किसी का?
हरे कृष्ण गुरु जी, रणत प्रणाम गुरु जी। गुरु जी, आपने बताया गुरु जी ज्ञान को विज्ञान में ट्रांसफर करने के लिए 3 स्टेज रहते हैं। पहला सुनना है, उसके बाद में कंटम्पलेशन एंड देन निधिध्यासनम। तो गुरु जी इसमें क्या रहता है? सुन लिया, देन द कंटम्पलेशन बिकम्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट बिकॉज for mind to contemplate on the spiritual subject matter, it is very unnatural for the mind, and for the material subject matters, इट इज वेरी इजी, मतलब वो ऐसा फ्लो बनता है प्रभु जी, मतलब 30 मिनट तक कंtemplation करते ही रहो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, एंड द होल पिक्चर्स बिकम्स वेरी इजी टू पिक्चराइज एवरीथिंग इन द मटेरियल सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन. But for
गुड।
spiritual, it becomes very difficult, Guruji. And the mind is filled with spiritual subject matters only, then वो थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है
So
Guruji
why?
in the.
So my question for you, why it is so? Why it is so that for material things the contemplation is very natural? Why it is so?
Because we have done these things so many times, Guruji.
Yes, because we have a very long practice. शाश्वत काल से हमने प्रैक्टिस किया है सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन के बारे में सोचना करना, राइट? शाश्वत समय का प्रैक्टिस है ये हमारा, राइट? एक महाराज बोलते हैं कि ये ईटिंग स्लीपिंग मीटिंग डिफेंडिंग ये सब हमारी पुरानी आदतें हैं। हर एक जन्म में हमने किया है वो सब चीजें। okay? लेकिन ये जो कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस है वो अभी नई आदत है हमारे ऊपर इस लाइफ में जो हम कर रहे हैं ना, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। भैया नई आदत को अपनाने में मुश्किल तो लगेगा ना, right? पुरानी आदत को छोड़ने में समय तो लगेगा कि नहीं लगेगा? लेकिन और कोई तरीका भी नहीं है, स्ट्रगल करना पड़ेगा, करना भी वही पड़ेगा, स्ट्रगल ही करना पड़ेगा। अब क्वेश्चन क्या था
क्वेश्चन यही
कि
था गुरुजी कि अभी कैसे
ऐसा क्यों
इससे
होता
बाहर
है?
निकल. हाँ,
ऐसा
यस.
कैसा बाहर निकले? भगवान यही बोल रहे हैं, ये तो ही चलती मना चंचला मस्तरम, आगे बताएंगे भगवान, राइट? प्रैक्टिस करो, राइट, है ना? अभ्यास है ना तो कौनते या वैराग्य ने च गृह्यते, राइट? अभ्यास करो, भगवान ने ये फॉर्मूला दिया, अभ्यास करो, अभ्यास करो, वैराग्य रखो, जो भी सेंस वैराग्य रखो, राइट? और जब ये करेंगे प्रयास तो फिर भगवान अपनी मर्जी दे देंगे और फिर वो वेव आएगी, भगवान की मर्जी का वेव आएगा जिससे अपने आप लग जाएगा, राइट? और पहले भगवान को दिखाना है कि भगवान हम यही चाहते हैं, राइट? आप अगर वो अभी हम इतना पूरा चाह नहीं रहे ना, कुछ ऐसे चाह नहीं रहे। जैसे मान लीजिए कोई कोई लड़का हो, कोई बच्चा हो, उसके माँ बाप उसके लिए कुछ अच्छा समझ रहे हैं, अच्छा अच्छा जान रहे हैं, उसको देना चाहते हैं वो, तो लड़का हट करके नहीं मुझे ये नहीं चाहिए, है ना? जबरदस्ती है क्या, है ना? क्यों दे रहे हो, मुझे नहीं चाहिए, क्यों? वही हमारा सिचुएशन है, ओके? अभी भगवान का हमको बोला दे दे कि पूरा सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन कर दे, अभी क्योंकि हमारा डिजायर भी नहीं है, इतना इंटेंशन भी नहीं है सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन छोड़ने का पूरा स्ट्रांगली, तो इसलिए भगवान अभी हमको छुड़वा भी नहीं रहे हैं पूरी तरीके से, राइट? जब हमारा डिजायर हो
गुरुजी, वो
जाएगा तो भगवान
डिजायर
छुड़ा देंगे।
डिजायर ही तो मतलब डिजायर नहीं है इसलिए तो नहीं कर पा रहे ना गुरुजी, छोड़ नहीं
हाँ
पा
तो
रहे.
बढ़ाओ, भगवान का बोले बढ़ाओ, डिजायर को बढ़ाओ, वैष्णव संगम में आओ, सत्संग सुनो, समझो क्यों मटेरियल डिजायर रखना अच्छा नहीं है, राइट? अपने डिजायर को बढ़ाओ, वॉल्यूम बढ़ाओ, है ना? दैट्स द पॉइंट। वही 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 हमारा प्रोसेस है, डिजायर को बढ़ाना।
यस गुरुजी.
वो
थैंक यू.
कल्टीवेशन है, मतलब उसका ऐसा कोई फॉर्मूला नहीं है कि फौजी शायद वो टॉनिक पीने से क्या डिजायर आ जाएगा क्या, नहीं, कल्टीवेशन ही है उसके लिए, कल्टीवेशन है ना? कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस इज द मैटर ऑफ कल्टीवेशन, को बात लिखते हैं जगह पे, कल्टीवेशन मतलब कि कल्टीवेट किया जाएगा, ये कल्टीवेट किया है, इसे कल्टीवेट करने की जरूरत है, अपने आप नहीं होगा, कल्टीवेट करना पड़ेगा। तो जैसे हमें बाकी अभी सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन कितना आसान, इतना इजी क्यों हमारे नेचुरल क्यों, क्योंकि बहुत कल्टीवेट किया है हमने उसको, बहुत एनर्जी लगाया है उसमें, पूरा तन मन धन दिया है उसके लिए अनेकों अनेकों जन्मों तक, ओके? तो इसलिए अभी वो तो नेचुरल बन गया है, तो अभी थोड़ा स्ट्रगल तो करना पड़ेगा ना भैया।
यस गुरुजी.
ठीक है। और कोई चैट बॉक्स में कुछ क्वेश्चन आया है क्या? हम्म, अ, अमन को पूछने क्या, इट कैन ऑल्सो रिप्रेजेंट द सुपर सोल? हाँ, यस, यस, आत्मा कैन ऑल्सो रिप्रेजेंट, जनरली वैसे सुपर सोल के लिए परमात्मा यूज करते हैं, बट फिर भी कहते हो। तो प्लीज एंड द मीटिंग आफ्टर यू एंड स्टॉप रिकॉर्डिंग ऑल्सो, मैं हेल्प यू। ओके, ठीक है। अरे आप मेरे को वो भेज देना आदर्श को यार, तो ये गुरुदास, ठीक है। आई थिंक एनीथिंग एल्स प्रभु? ओके, मैं इसको आपका इसमें डाल दूंगा ना। थैंक यू सो मच, प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्तवृंद की जय।